Well, hello there. I don't understand the first post, which says, global liberalism it is then. Global liberalism, what is then? It is these peculiar sentences that make no sense that I think retards the thinking of so many people. They feel they have to say something, and even if it doesn't make any sense, they will say it and make utter fools of themselves. If you have nothing to say, then don't say it. Now, why would you call secular Koranism liberalism when most people would think of a one-party theocracy governed by the principles of the Quran to be the opposite of liberalism? But because you choose to wish to lie about me, you can say these things. Why do you say these things? Do you have any basis on which to say it? Okay, my avatar. Well, obviously, all ideas, all political ideas, aspire to global domination. Communism is not the only one. We know the schism between the Russian communists, between Trotsky and Stalin. And Stalin was the sensible one, saying, look, we can't go around annoying everybody with our communism. Charity begins at home. We better tidy up our room first before we can foist international communism globally. And of course he was right. But Trotsky was a bit of a fanatic, and he wanted to do the crusading bit. I think it's a bit like Alexander the Great. He enjoyed conquering peoples, obviously. So he started from Macedonia and went all the way to India, and he didn't even stop to consolidate his empire. And as all of us who have played Risk know, consolidation is an essential part of your empire building. And if you don't consolidate your gains, then you will very quickly lose them, as Alexander the Great did when he suddenly died at the age of, was it 33? Self-hating Jew says Domingo won some kind of argument or other, but he won't be able to describe it. A lot of people don't seem to know when an argument has been lost or won, or if they claim that a particular person won the argument, they won't be able to explain even what the argument was about and why that person who was supposed to won the argument actually won the argument with what killer argument and what killer point. I'm afraid, living in a degenerate matriarchy as we do, people are basically talking nonsense most of the time. They are, in effect, lunatics wandering around in an open lunatic asylum where a world exists where other lunatics who are not in a lunatic asylum are apparently doing real life jobs. So Domingo says, what I propose is liberalism because I am steadfast in my determination to go by the book. So basically Domingo said, ignore all the verses that I don't like, ignore freedom of belief. And I thought, no, I actually like the First Amendment. argument. I like chapter 2, verse 256 that says, "There is no compulsion in belief. Truth sounds clear from error." I have to go by the book whether I like it or not. That is the whole point of secular Koranism, which is to submit to the truth, logic and morality of following a book of rules that you know has the highest possible authority, because it is supposed to be from the most powerful deity conceivable. And that is the whole point of the exercise. It's not for me to say, this is what I think you should be doing, and you had better do it, because I know that I don't have an army and have no prospect of acquiring an army to get everyone else to do what I want them to do. I can only appeal to a higher authority. And indeed, the supreme authority, why not appeal to the supreme authority, the hypothetical supreme authority that is the Abrahamic God, if indeed he exists. So I think I've explained to you the mechanism of secular Koranism. So the higher authority would be people's conception of what truth, logic and morality is, and the hypothetical supreme authority is, of course, the Abrahamic God, if he does indeed exist. I see Conops has rolled up. But has he anything constructive to say? I suppose you are all already experts on secular Koranism, having known me for so long. I haven't given up on the idea. In fact, I think the worse things get, the more likely it is for secular Koranism to be adopted. Even if it is not adopted in my lifetime, I think the worse things get, the more likely it is to be adopted by somebody else. Secular Koranism remains the biggest idea around. Nobody has heard of anything bigger and better than secular Koranism. But unfortunately, there is no one in charge. There is no responsible adult in charge of Western civilization. It's only Western politicians furiously passing the buck in ever increasing velocity until it is a blur. So nobody knows where the buck is now, and by the time they discover where it is now, it will have moved on, rather like the light you see from stars hundreds of light years away. So by the time the light reaches our eyes, the star might have imploded and become a black hole. It's nice to see so many people popping up, the old familiar faces. Now, who would I like to talk to? Elliot, I was thinking of you today when I was looking at a picture called The Devil's Slide. There's one in the UK called, in London, and I have in fact visited it. But I know there's also one in California, where you are. you've just had a birthday and you've been swimming in the Pacific. So perhaps you'd like to join us and talk about your adventures, rather than hear me droning on about secular Koranism. Perhaps I mistitled it. Perhaps what I really wanted to say was, ask me anything about any political problem in the wide world, and I will have an answer from secular Koranism to solve it. So you could try that. Elliot's going to the ocean. Alright, so I guess I'll have to monologue for a bit. I don't particularly want to talk about secular Koranism. Well, what I really hoped for is that people would ask me, difficult questions about, I don't know, the energy crisis, the whatever, so I can apply my brilliant mind towards answering the question and showing how clever I am and how I ought to be, at the very least, government consultant, government advisor. Well, I've given Elliot the link, but it seems he's on his way to the ocean. No, nothing particular is going on. Have any of you seen any streams that you have found of interest? I suppose the most interesting one that I've seen would be Week in Review. It seems that week after week, I think we enjoy it. Jen and David bicker, and it's perhaps it reminds you of childhood. When you hear your parents bicker. But there's something rather cosy and enjoyable about it, and you do ask yourself, will it be the last time? Will they finally break up, or will they not and stay together for the sake of their subscribers? Who is Dr. Campbell? Okay, so the freak helpfully asked me, what's the number one issues facing the globe holding mankind back? Well, the most urgent problem to be solved is the fact that the West is a degenerate matriarchy, and the worst case scenario would be that the West is about to blunder into a Third World War. And this is what declining empires do. If you can equate a declining empire to, I suppose a good person would be a suitable analogy would be a man who I guess won a lot of fights in his time when he was young, and there may be a thug or something, and he still fancies himself, he thinks he's strong, but he's got a bit of a paunch. He likes going to the pub. He drinks too much. He gets belligerent. He insults other people around him, and one of these days, he's going to insult somebody he shouldn't be insulting, who would get quite aggressive if he started pushing them around or insulting them too much, and he might get floored with a sucker punch or something. But if he drinks too much, if he is still trying to impress some woman in the pub by his belligerence, it might not be such a good idea to risk too much. When you think about it, Britain fell into its Thucydides Trap not once but twice since it declared war on Germany, not once but twice. And it wasn't just any old war, it was World War I and World War II. And this brings me back to the question of the post-war narrative that my friend Alison Shablows has blasphemed against, I think. You see, these crimes are not, well, they're not official, so they're not really considered to be crimes until there's a kind of glass door crime, I guess. Technically the UK doesn't have a law against Holocaust denial, and technically Alison was not, in fact, convicted of Holocaust denial, but of some infringement of the Communications Act. But national identity changes after an invasion or a revolution or a war. There are these three options. If you're taken over by a foreign country, then, well, things are going to be different. And if you lost a war, you're going to be desperately trying to craft the narrative so the reason that you lost the war is acceptable to the people who died in it, or rather the loved ones of the people who died in it, the descendants of the men who died in the First and Second World Wars. Can anybody explain to me what they thought the First World War was about? People in the chat, you should try to sum up what you think caused the First and Second World Wars. Can you say that in a way that makes sense? I was talking to my mother about the First World War, and she doesn't even remember. She must have learnt something at school, or perhaps it was, well, actually, what could have happened was that it wasn't in the curriculum. It wasn't in the curriculum, right? Because it was still classified as current affairs or something. So that might explain why she's a bit vague about it. It's not like how many wives did Henry VIII have, that kind of thing, or who won the 100 Years' War, or anything like that. I see somebody, Connops, and is talking about some journalist or some person that I don't know, never heard of. Okay, back to the question about the major problem. The major problem of the West is... Oh, I've taken off my headphones. But Elliot has not arrived, but he says he'll be joining us soon. Okay, some sort of silly argument taking place in the chat, and I don't even know what it's about. And Elliot will be coming soon. So the problem, as I keep saying, is that Western men have no way of organising themselves in their matriarchy because they don't have a leader who represents their interests. And this is fundamentally the problem of female suffrage. It would actually be okay to let women have the vote, provided they are married women. But since most women are not married, and most men don't want to marry women of their own race, even if one could be found to marry them, I think things are going to get from bad to worse. So a lot of this woke stuff is, in my view, Western woman showing a hatred of Western man by undermining his status, undermining his authority, and destroying the civilization that his male ancestors created. So I think that's a problem. And Elliot is here. Hello, Elliot. How nice to see you. You are at the beach. Are you not? But I can't hear you. You're a blur of orange and pink and a bit of blue sky and glasses and a bit of a smile, and then we see a bit of Elliot's ear and but no sound from Elliot. And but we see the sea, we see the Pacific and Elliot's ear. Oh yes, we hear sound. We hear the waves of the Pacific. And now we have silence again. We'll wait a while in the hope of Elliot appearing. And he's asking me if I can hear anything, but we heard something. Yes, we hear waves. Yes, I heard waves. And I know he's just read it. I hear waves again. But he can't hear me. I think I heard a bird. I hear another wave. But I can't hear Elliot's voice. Oh well, I'll just keep talking. Oh, somebody says it's not even waves, it sounds like static. There's some sort of shuffling around in the background, but I think I heard Elliot's voice, a sort of muffled squawk. I suppose it must be a bit awkward for him. He can't hear not a single word. Oh well. Does Conops want to join? He says, let's try tomorrow. We can do that. I haven't actually listened to the news at all, so I can't even talk about the latest thing. I have sent Conops the link. But I don't think I just have a feeling he won't come on. All right, I'm just going to end the stream now. It hasn't been a very successful one. But may I remind you that I will be speaking to a rabbi tomorrow, as well as perhaps Elliot a little later on. The freak says he can prove Muhammad submitted to the authority of Jesus. Well, post away, post your evidence in the chat, and maybe we can talk about it one day. All right then, I'll say good night to you all. I guess it's just not happening tonight.